Amen. You guys can take a seat. Feeling good this morning? Oh, you're looking good. We're in week 2 of a brand new series we started last week called Happily Even After. We're taking some time to examine what God has to say about love and relationships and marriage. Because we know that no matter where we're at, whether we're married, single, divorced, dating, or we want to be one of those things, all that stuff can be a real struggle. It can be difficult, and it can be confusing. And so we're digging into the book Song of Songs, or Song of Solomon, to see what God has to say about love, about what He created it to be, about who He created us to be, and how He created us to do relationships with one another. Last week we kicked off the series by talking about attraction, who we should be looking for and what we should be looking for in them. Like how we can be the person that the person we're looking for is looking for. And today we're going to spend some time talking about the process of moving from attraction to marriage. We usually call it dating. And so the focus of this morning, the main focus is going to be for single people who are interested in getting married, whether that's something you're interested in really soon, or you're in middle school and high school and you're thinking, well, that's a long way down the road, but I might want to be someday. This message this morning is specifically for you. But if you're married, or you're divorced, or you're happily single, and that doesn't describe you, I think there's some good stuff for you today, too. If you want a stronger marriage, there's good stuff for you. If you're in a position where you're a friend to somebody who's dating or wants to be, you're a parent or a grandparent to someone who's dating or wants to be, there's some really, really good stuff God has to say this morning. I don't know, even this topic, the idea that we're going to talk about love and sex and dating and marriage, for some of you feels a little bit weird to talk about in church. And for some of you, you're in kind of a comfortable position and you're not worried about it and you wish we were talking about something else. But I think this is really critically important stuff for us to discuss here. Because there are so many garbage ideas and so many garbage pictures out there in our world of what love and dating and marriage are all about, of how we should think and feel about them. And God's vision and God's picture is so much better. And it's radically countercultural. So if our only ideas about what that is and what it means and how we should do it come from our culture, then we're going to have bad ideas and we're going to settle for something less than what the God of the universe says is His best for us. And so we're doing this series because I don't want you to settle. I don't want anyone in this room to live out a story that is any less than it has to be, that settles for anything less than God's best plan and best design for your life. And I don't want it because I love you guys. I love you. I wish I could say that, I can't say it enough, and I wish I could say it more articulately, but I love you, and I pray for you by name, and the great passion of my life, the thing that keeps me up at night and gets me out of bed in the mornings, making sure everyone who walks through the doors of Revision gets a big vision of who this God is that is so ridiculously in love with you, that He sent His Son to die so that you could be reconciled to a relationship with Himself. And I want you to see who it is that He made you to be and how it is that He created us to do relationships, and that's why we're doing this series. One last thing before we kind of dive into this whole dating process. I want you all to know that it's okay not to date, now or ever. Please don't hear this talk this morning and think like wherever you're at in life, you got to run out the door and find a boyfriend or girlfriend. Like you don't have to. You don't have to now, and you don't have to ever. I think there's this huge societal pressure on us to date, or to be in some sort of a relationship. And it doesn't get any easier like in our world where we see 8-year-olds who have a boyfriend or girlfriend and they're posting about it on social media. You know, it's like, but how real is that relationship? Okay, girl, what you doing? Watching Dora the Explorer. Cool, we want to trade Pokemons? That's what happens, but then we look at it, someone's looking at it like, how can that little pick a girlfriend? I can't. It's frustrating, but we're all different. We got different stages, and we're going to enter into relationships at different points in our life. At some point, all guys stop throwing stuff at girls and try to be nice to them. It happens. It happens. So whether you're interested in dating right now, or whether you think maybe you will be sometime in the future, or whether you know someone who will be, or you want a stronger marriage, I want to dive into what God has to say in the book of Song of Songs so we can get a bigger, better picture of who He is and what He made all that stuff to be. First things first, what is even the purpose of this whole dating endeavor? That's a phenomenal question. I'm glad I asked it. Way to go. The Bible doesn't talk a whole lot about dating or courting or talking or whatever it's called these days, but it does talk a lot about relationships, about the God who created them and about what He created them to be. In the book of Genesis, in this poem about how God created the world, it says this: The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up that place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. And that is why man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." God designed relationships. He created marriage, and it's good. The whole first chapter of Genesis talks about God creating the world. And after everything that he made, he looked back and said, "That's good. That's good. That's good. That's very good." The first thing God calls not good in the Bible is for a man to be alone. He says it's not good for man to be alone. So he created Eve, and God created and instituted marriage. And he said, look, this idea that two people, two journeys can merge into one journey where you're pulling in the same direction together and doing life together as one. That's it. That's this marriage thing I created. And that is the ultimate purpose of dating. To find somebody who you can give your life to, who your life can join up with, and you can do one journey together for the rest of it. That's the purpose. Okay? And let me be frank, if that is not your purpose in dating, if you're dating and that's not your ultimate goal, if that's not the end of the road that you see, there is not a purpose in dating. This whole thing is moot. But I want to clarify that just a little bit, because I think in the church sometimes, I think there are some Christians who are really well-meaning, who hear that, and then they decide you have to marry the first person that you date. It just has to work out like that. My sister believed that for a long time. She read some book, and she's like, I can't, if I give away a piece of my heart, I have to marry the first guy. And I told her, maybe that was a good book, but cool out a little bit. You're going to be fine, okay? Dating should be fun. And it doesn't have to involve immediate lifelong commitment. That's called marriage. Marriage and dating are different. The purpose of dating is to spend time with someone to see if they're the kind of person you want to commit your life to. If they're the kind of person you want to become one with. And sometimes they aren't, and that's okay. But, and this is a huge but, if they aren't, and when you know they aren't, it's not okay to keep dating them. If you have no intention of ever ending up together, if you can't see that type of a future, it's not cool to date them just for fun. I heard someone say this once, and I thought it was wise. Dating without the intent of getting married is like going to the grocery store with no money. You either leave unsatisfied or you take something that isn't yours. And so when you date with that purpose in mind, what should it look like? Song of Songs gives us some answers. If you have your Bibles with you, you can open them up to the book of Song of Songs right near the middle. If you don't have them with you, don't worry, the words will be on the screen. If you don't own one, or your kids don't, we got a bunch of them in the Next Steps table, a bunch of different colors, kids versions for your kids. Please take them. Okay? But here's what we're going to talk about as we dive into the second chapter of Song of Songs is this process, this season of moving from attraction to marriage. And there's some different seasons involved in that process. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." And so today what I want to do is take a look at the picture God paints of the seasons involved in moving from attraction to marriage. So if you're a note taker, here's the first one. And this is a season that every single one of us goes through, all of us. The first season is the season of preparation. This is where we're developing and growing into the kind of person we need to be in order to make a marriage work and make marriage flourish. Where God's working in us to shape our lives and to shape our hearts and shape our character into the person that the person we're looking for is looking for. Here's the truth about the season of preparation. This is almost never the season anybody wants to be in. And it is never, ever anybody's favorite season, but it's critically important. This is just how God works. All throughout the Bible, from beginning to end, we see God putting people through seasons of preparation. Moses got prepared out in the wilderness. David got prepared in the field with the sheep. John got prepared in the desert. It's how God works. He prepares us to be the people we need to be in order to do the things He made us to do. So I want to talk about how God sees things. And in verse 11 of chapter 2, we find Solomon's beloved reflecting back on this season of preparation that's now past. This is what she says. "See, the winter is past. The rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth. The season of singing has come. The cooing of doves is heard in our land. The fig tree forms its early fruit. The blossoming vines spread their fragrances. Arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. Winter. Whenever we see it in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, in poetic books and prophetic books, winter almost always refers to this long, hard season of preparation. One that isn't easy, one that's frustrating, one that nobody wants to be in, but one that God says is critical so that the spring can come. We know this, there is no spring without the winter. There are invisible things happening in the winter that prepare the ground so that the blossoms can bloom in the spring. And if you're in this season of preparation, if you're in the winter, it's easy to hate it. Don't hate it. Don't just chomp at the bit to get out of it. The roots. Like often the roots that are anchoring you to God are growing in the winter, and spring is coming. Spring's coming. I know it can be lonely and it can be frustrating in the winter. I know it. But we got to remember that living happily even after is as much about being the right person as it is about finding the right person. So lean in and let God work and let God grow roots in you in this season of preparation. And don't rush it. Last week we talked about character and how character is infinitely more important than characteristics. We should be looking for someone with integrity who loves Jesus. But every time you find one of those people, don't nail them and claim them for your spouse and start thinking about what you're going to call your kids. Okay? That's too soon. Just cool out on it a little bit before you even talk to them. Some people are like, they're looking across the church like, ooh, that guy, yep. And our third kid, Alex. It's like, this is not good. So I receive in math class. You start thinking, hey, you know what else? Stop looking for signs. Don't try and force signs. I talk to people all the time who are looking for a sign. Like, I'm just looking for a sign from God. We're supposed to be together. And then I have these conversations after church. Dude, I saw her. Okay, check it out. She has a brown Bible. I have a brown Bible. I think God wants us to be together. Stop. That's creepy, and it reminds me of Homer Simpson. Please make decisions on a basis that is better than the decisions Homer Simpson makes. Don't be a Homer Simpson in your relationships. Don't rush that stuff. Wait on it. Let it happen. It's cool. Don't be looking for weird signs. And if you're married, let's talk to married people real quick. If you're married and it feels like you're in a winter season, if it feels like nothing is blooming in your marriage, like there's not a whole lot of good fruit that's being produced, it feels cold and dark and lonely, do not quit right now. That is the moment where a whole lot of people throw in the towel, and it's heartbreaking because spring is coming and spring is beautiful. There's something growing in that winter. Don't quit now. Don't quit now. And I want to tell you this. I know it because I've talked to hundreds of couples. There's not one couple ever that's been married 20 years or 30 years or 40 years or 11 years that will tell you that there aren't seasons of winter that you go through. But God is at work in the winter. Don't quit on a bad day. Don't quit on a bad season. Spring is coming. Spring's beautiful. Work, grow, and trust that God is doing something big. Okay, so preparation is this first season. It's when we all go through, and then you see her. And then you meet him, and your heart starts going fast, and you move on to the spot where you're going to ask the big question. Will you go out with me? Circle one, yes, no, or maybe. If they circle maybe, they're being nice. It means no, don't stalk them. Pro tip. All right? If they circle yes, you're going to move out of the preparation season into the next one. And the second season is the season of infatuation. This is the way Song of Songs describes it. Listen, my beloved, look, here he comes, leaping across the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, peering through the lattice. My beloved spoke and said to me, arise, my darling, beautiful, come with me. That's really awkward to read. I just said peering through the lattice and young stag to a bunch of people. It's uncomfortable. Next week I'm picking other people to read for me. Anyone who's not in the first 3 rows. That'll get you people to move on. I was kidding. But anyways, what we see in this passage is this imagery of like springtime and blossom love. It's all like the ooey gooey, lovey-dovey stuff of like a young relationship. And we know exactly that relationship. All of us know it. It's those people who are like amazed by each other. They're posting social media stuff all the time. And they make a really big deal out of their 1-month anniversary. Because they don't understand Latin root words and they think they've accomplished something. Okay? And like, they're googly-eyed and it makes you want to hurl. Right? You know it. They're sitting there giggling and you're kind of like, but it's good. And this stage, the infatuation stage, is so fun. And it's the stage where people are just absolutely certain that they're deeply in love. and they have no idea what that means. I like to call it the summer camp love stage. I volunteered in a camp a few summers way back in the day, and I got a real kick out of watching like 3rd and 4th and 5th graders and middle school students hang out with each other for a week and decide that they were madly in love. It was just really good. But it happens, the infatuation stage. I want to read you guys a letter. This is an actual letter discovered at a Christian camp in Virginia after a middle school camp retreat. It was written to a girl at camp by a boy who obviously hadn't been able to make it to camp that year, but he's in love. Tara Victoria, beautiful Scott. I love you so freaking much, baby doll. I hope you have tons of fun on this trip you're about to go on. I know it'll be fun to get away, but promise me you won't forget about me. And remember, wherever you go, you'll always have that piece of my heart. And you'll always have my heart. You've grown to be a part of my family, and I feel like I've grown to be a part of yours. I don't care if anyone tells us we're not going to last, because in my mind, I have big plans for us to go all the way through life together. I know people say it won't happen, but I know we can do it, baby. I've never felt this way about anyone or anything in my entire life. It's the best feeling, and I will never let you go. You know I'm always here for you, baby, no matter what. Besides, we're like a married couple, Tay. LOL. I've grown so close to you over these past 4 months. I know we have a lifetime together, so I know I have tons to make up for you because of my bumpy start with our relationship. But Tara, baby, I know I can make it up to you. The beach is going to be so awesome together, waking up early in the morning, staying out on the beach late at night. It's going to be the best thing that ever happened to me, except when I asked you out for the first time. Little did I know, Tara, baby, but my life changed so much, and I know I've met the girl I need. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I need you, baby, and you know you have me. I'm totally committed to you and our relationship together. I can't wait to give you this promise ring. It's going to be the best feeling I'll ever experience. It's going to mean so much to us, and I know it will last forever. I love you so much, Tay-Ray. I never knew I could fall in love at this early age, and my love for you grows every second I'm with you or away from you. Tara, baby, you're the most beautiful woman I'll ever meet or see. You're so amazing, and I'm so glad. God bless the broken road that led me straight to you. Whatever love is, it is not that. It is not that. But when you're in the infatuation stage, you don't know any better. You're just convinced of it. That kid, that's right where he is. And it's a really fun season of a relationship to be in. It's awesome for you. It's gross for everybody else, but it's awesome for you. But I want to warn you. I warn you that it's a season. And it will pass. It will absolutely pass. And if you don't take precautions, early in a relationship, in this infatuation stage, particularly, your emotions are going to take you somewhere you're not ready to go. And if you get there, happily even after is going to be really hard. Because it's not the direction you're going to be heading in. So I want to give you a little bit of advice. In the early days of a relationship, the early days and months and year, this infatuation stage, it lasts for a while. There's some things you got to limit. If you really want to live happily even after, if you really want to live God's best story for your life, I want to give you 3 things you have to limit in this stage. First, you got to limit your time. I know, just like that kid, you want to be together every second, every waking minute. You just want to be with that person and give up the rest of your life and everything else for them. Don't do that. It's bad. I can parade hundreds of people that I know. I'm going to set a made-up number. Probably every married person in here would stand up and tell you, don't do that. That's bad. Okay? It just is, but it happens all the time. People sacrifice friendships. They sacrifice activities. They give up a huge chunk of their life to be with somebody else, and it's a terrible idea for a few reasons. First and foremost, there's a really great chance that that relationship will not last as long or matter as much as the friendships you're walking away from. Seriously, what happens if you tell all your friends, girls, I can't spend time with you anymore because my life is devoted to him now. Then 2 months later, you're hanging out at his house, and he shows you his insect collection. You find out his mom picks out his outfits. You just abandon your friends for mommy's special bug boy. This is a bad situation. Don't get yourself in that spot. Just don't do it. And also, healthy relationships, a kind God made, they invite other people in, not push other people out. A healthy relationship is one where you invite that person who you love or think you might into the whole of the rest of your life and the whole of the rest of who you are. And number two, you got to limit your talk. You don't need to start saying I love you right away. You don't need to say you're the one for me, you're perfect, you're so perfect. I hear people in the infatuation stage say perfect a whole lot. Now show of hands, be honest. How many of you have heard a married woman call her husband perfect in the last 6 months? Bueller? Anyone? Yeah, there's a lesson in that, and that's this. If you're in a dating relationship and you think he's perfect, you don't know him yet. Okay? You just don't know him. So you don't need to jump in to saying, I have big plans for us to go all the way through life together. Like a married couple, Tay Ray, you're part of my family. It's been an amazing 4 months. Just don't do it. You start talking like that, you start using those type of words, and what you're doing is ratcheting up a whole lot of pressure. And you're putting way more weight on a relationship than it can stand because it doesn't have a foundation yet. You got to limit the way that you talk so that you and God can build up a strong foundation first. And number three, you got to limit your touch. We're going to dig deeper into this in just a minute. But in this infatuation stage, in these early months and year, you got to limit your touch to nothing or almost nothing. Because let me be frank with you, if you don't, you might very well end up falling madly in love. But not with a person, just with the sensation. And this is especially true for guys. Women out there, it just is. If you want them to fall in love with you, and not just the way that you touch them, if you want them to be in love with who you are and not just some sensation, then you have to limit your touch. Because it's really, really easy to fall in love with something other than a person, especially in the infatuation stage. And it's difficult. It's difficult because your heart moves towards someone and your hands want to follow. They just do. That's how it works, okay? But here's what happens. If you start walking down that road before there's a deep emotional commitment there, it's kind of like my sister-in-law, when she was little, she loved cats. And one day her parents took her to pick out her own kitten to be her own, and she just loved it. She picked it out of the box, and she snuggled it, and she hugged it, and it was fluffy, and it was cute, and little Megan hugged that sucker to death. And she didn't have a cat for like 5 years, because they were afraid she'd kill another one, okay? In the early stages of a relationship, you may really want to touch. It's going to be tempting. But if you do, let me tell you this, you're not walking towards the pathway of happily even after. You're walking towards the pathway of hugging what you really want right to death. It's the infatuation season. It's great to be in. It's gross to watch. It's exciting, but it's dangerous. You got to limit your time and your talk and your touch. If you do that well, you move on to the next season. And this one's really, really good. You go from preparation to infatuation to the season of revelation. And these stages kind of overlap. They're not a strict division. It's what I made up from reading Songs 2, right? But in this season of revelation, there's a lot of discovery. You find out absolutely everything about each other because you want to. You just want to know everything about who that person is, and what that person loves, and what makes them tick, and what makes them smile. I remember the season of revelation in my relationship with Jenny incredibly clearly. When I went to college, it was 2001 BCE, before the cell phone era. Not everybody had them. I told you this story a few weeks ago, but I had to buy phone cards to talk to Jenny. And I realized, I did the math a few years ago, and realized I spent over $1,000 my freshman year of college just to talk to her. There was no other purpose, and there was no other person who got those calls from the phone card. $1,000 just to hear her talk. We talked for hours. I wanted to hear, and I wanted to know absolutely everything about that girl. I spent so much money just talking to Jenny. I was broke. I had to go to my grandma's house to eat on the weekends. Also, she did my laundry. True story. But it was worth it. It was worth every single penny. And as I was writing this down and thinking about it, I realized that 17 years later, on Sundays when I go home and she tries to talk to me, I say, "Ah, the Bears are on." We're going to talk about that development and problem in another message. Okay? But communication happens, and part of relationships is knowing the other person fully and being fully known. And it means being real. If you feel like you gotta hold something back, if you feel like you can't really be you, or you can't really be honest with that person, or they won't love you, or they'll leave you, then that relationship isn't right and you need to bail. Relationships at the core, like the best of them, and the reason God made them, and the reason it's an extension of His grace into our lives, is that we have the opportunity in relationship, both with Him and with one another, to be fully known. all our faults and all our fears and all our failures and all our insecurities and all the things about us that we don't like, we have an opportunity for someone else to look at us and know that stuff and love us anyways. And in this revelation season of dating, that's the season where you find that stuff out. It gets raw and it gets vulnerable, and you throw it all on the table and see, like, are you okay with me anyway? Like Jenny did for me. I'm a little bit of an idiot. Is that going to be okay? Later on, she might say she made a bad choice. But in that season, she didn't decide to bail. And it's okay to decide to bail right then. It's okay, but you need to take time in a relationship to discover everything. It's important. You need to know who it is. Like everything. For instance, what color her eyes are. She'll really appreciate it if you know that. If you've been dating somebody, you've been in a relationship for any amount of time, and you can't answer that question off the top of your head, you need to start having your conversations 12 inches north, okay? It's just good. You should learn that. This season of revelation, real love and real commitment begin to build and grow, and it's so good. Like, love was designed by God. It's hardwired into us as human beings. And it's an incredible thing to seek and find in a relationship with another person. It doesn't mean it's necessary. We're going to talk about singleness in a few weeks, because like faithful singleness is something the church just doesn't talk about enough, and that's bad, and the church should. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. It's not necessary, but it's so good when you find it. And God designed it to be so good. But as you seek to be known and loved, and you enter into dating relationships, especially the seasons of infatuation and revelation, it's critically important to set boundaries. It is. We talked about limiting time, talk, and touch in the infatuation season, but boundaries are way bigger than that. They're way bigger than that, and I don't think I can possibly over-communicate or overemphasize or stress enough how critical it is. If you want to live happily even after, if you want to live out the best story from where you are to where God wants you, to set and keep and maintain and respect boundaries in your life and in your relationships. If you don't do it, you'll have hurt. You will. It just is. And you'll have regrets. And I don't say that to like moralize you or scare you or try to whip you into shape. I say it from the bottom of a broken heart, who has too many people that I love who haven't done it, who haven't walked that path, who haven't set up the boundaries, and who just have deep regret over that. They just wish they had a time machine. So I want to encourage you, every single one of you, set boundaries now. Set them before you even start dating somebody. If you meet somebody who doesn't like your boundaries, they can go. There's another somebody who's better. And Song of Songs challenges us to do that. The bride talks about setting her boundaries before she even entered into the relationship. We read Song of Songs 1:7 last week, which she says, "Why should I be like a veiled woman beside the flocks of your friends?" She demanded respect from him, and he honored that because integrity means setting boundaries and putting up fences. And I love the imagery. I love the picture that they paint of what that looks like in their relationship. In Song of Songs, chapter 2, verse 15. She looks at him and says this, "Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom." There's this species of fox that lives in Israel. It's a little fox called the red fox. And they're a huge problem for farmers because what they do is sneak under the fences into a vineyard and they dig up the roots of the grapevines. And so vineyards have to be watched really, really carefully because red foxes, one at a time, will absolutely ruin an entire vineyard by digging up the roots. One fox at a time. I wonder, how often do we see little foxes ruining relationships? Small compromises that creep in, one at a time, and then another, and then another, and then another, and you look back and the roots are gone. Like that anchor that held you to God and held you to each other has been dug out by crossing one boundary after another boundary after another boundary, not intentionally, but just one little fox at a time. Here's a picture of a little red fox in Israel. We'll leave it up there for a second, because this is the truth about relationships. Okay? Once you cross a line, it's almost, if not completely, impossible to go back. Once you start holding hands, you don't go back. Once you start making out, you're not going back. Once you go further than that, you're not going back. Once you've gone somewhere, you've been there, and it's really, really, really hard to stop being there and to go back. And little foxes, one at a time, will destroy the roots. They'll take you farther than you want to go, and they'll cost relationships. How I can give them better counsel. And he told me something I thought was really interesting. He said, most teenagers don't know this, and most adults don't either. But in the early stages of a relationship, the growth of the physical side actually stunts the growth of the emotional side. You can't grow physically and emotionally at the same time. I thought about it, I thought, well, that kind of makes sense, because you can't talk to somebody about what their hopes and dreams are if their tongue is stuck in your mouth. So I think that's physics. But it makes a lot of sense. But he continued and he said, look, here's the thing. Sex actually stops conflict resolution growth in a relationship, especially when it's in the context of a marriage. Because without that deep level commitment, once you start having sex, every time you have a problem, you're like, we should do that again. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. You never actually learn how to solve your problems. And it was a really interesting perspective. This guy was fascinating to talk to, but I think if you really want to live happily even after, it means setting and guarding boundaries. I know that fox looks cute, but he's not. He's an evil little subtle relationship stiller, and I have one thing to say. Kill the foxes. If you remember nothing else this morning, burn that image into your brain. Let's get the hashtag trending into one. Kill the foxes. Kill them. And married people, what are the foxes in your life? What are those little things that are sneaking in, the things that you're thinking about or looking at or reading? It's the 21st century. They're there. What are they? Figure out what they are and figure out a way to kill the foxes. If you want to live happily even after, if you want God's best story, we've got to figure out that stuff that is digging away at the roots of our connection with God and our connection with one another. We've got to kill the foxes. Just real quick, I want to close by just talking about what appropriate boundaries might be. Emotionally and physically. Emotionally, don't let your mouth write a check that you're not ready to cash yet. Don't talk about marriage and babies and what your third kid's going to be named and what color the nursery is going to be on your second date. Hold your horses, that's way too fast. And physically, I just want to encourage all of you, as you think about that, to start thinking about fences and boundaries by not asking the question, how far is too far? That's the question I get asked all the time. All the time, so many people come and they say, well, how far is too far? Well, I'm thinking about setting up boundaries. How far is too far? And I'm going to tell you this morning, that is the wrong question. It's the wrong question. Because it's essentially saying, I want to get as far away from God as I possibly can without being such a bad sinner that he's going to smite me with lightning or something like that. Right? It's saying, deep down, I really want to be sexually immoral. But I don't want to sin. So, how far can I go to get there? And it occurs to me, we would not tolerate that question in any other area of our lives. For example, if I stood up here and asked you guys, all right, crowdsource it for me. How far is too far to go in beating my kids? Okay? I don't really know those boring dads who loves them and tries to do things counterculturally, radically God's way. Deep down, I want to be a child abuser, but I'm trying to figure out how hard and how many times can I hit Jimmy with a wiffle bat? All the parents out there think that would be so cathartic. Okay, but anyways, how hard and how many times can I beat him with a wiffle bat before going to jail or before sinning? Because however that is, I want to get right up to that line, baby. How many of you would be like, I like this guy. We should invite more people to this church. Is that okay with you? No! We wouldn't tolerate it when it comes to abusing our kids. So why is that the first question we always ask when it comes to relationships? How close can I get to that line? How far can I push that boundary before it's too far? What if you started asking the question, how close can I get to God? How much can I honor Him? How close to His plan and His best for me can I live out my life? What if you set boundaries that pushed you closer to Jesus rather than limited how far away from Him you're going to run? I just know so many people that didn't do it. And so many that would give anything to take it back. So many of my friends. One of my best friends in college decided he was going to let in some foxes. Who cares? I'm going to marry her. A couple weeks before graduation, we went ring shopping. And then he got dumped. And about a year and a half later, he met this girl, and he told me she's the girl of my dreams. She's a girl who'd been committed to just doing it God's way, and committed to boundaries, and committed to purity, and committed to giving her entire life to the one that she was going to become one with and do life together with. And I remember vividly the conversation. He called me one night after he had her over to his apartment and told her, hey, I didn't do that. That's not how I let in the foxes, I let in the boundaries, and he was sobbing. This is a 23-year-old guy. I've known him for years and never heard him cry, and he was shattered. He said not because she dumped him, but just because he felt so ripped apart that he had to look into the eyes of the girl of his dreams and tell her that. And I didn't know what to say. Told you so. No. Like, it wasn't the right time. It's never the right time. And I told him the same thing I would tell every single one of you. If you're sitting here this morning, you're thinking, well, I'm too far gone. Well, I already let in the foxes. Well, I can't do a relationship God's way now. It's too late for me. I told him this, and I'll tell it to you. I told him, listen, man, I love you, and you need to remember forgiveness. You need to remember that the cross of Jesus Christ, his blood shed there, allows us to be washed whiter than snow. That forgiveness is real and it's whole, and God says we're counted just as righteous as Jesus. And it's available to you. All you got to do is believe. All you got to do is believe. I don't care who you are or what you've done. You are never too far gone for the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. It's real and it's here and it's free. And two, I don't care who you are, what you've done. It's never too late to start doing it God's way. From this point forward, there's a blessing in that. There's grace in that. There's like the best possible story God wants to write for your life. From where you are to where he wants you to be. You're not outside of his ability to reach and his ability to do something great. You're never too far gone for God. Not ever. So I want to encourage you to do that wherever you're at. And whatever season of life and relationships you're at. Decide, hey, from here, I want to live out God's best story for me because I believe that that's a God who loves me enough to die for me. He loves me enough to give me guidelines for the best. Because after this season, after preparation and infatuation and revelation comes declaration, the fourth season. It's a season where a relationship has grown solid, a Christ-centered foundation has been built, and where you decide you're just going to commit your entire life to journeying together with another human being. To become one, to get married, and it's an incredible adventure. We're going to spend a whole week talking about it in a few weeks from now. But it's an incredible adventure. Okay, so dating, relationships, they grow. And they take time and they go through seasons. And again, the seasons I talk about today, they're not official. But in the end, the purpose of this whole process is to find someone to become one with. Someone to love with deep commitment so that you can get an imperfect little picture of the unconditional, incredible love God has for you and the relationship he wants with you. I want to encourage you, if you do it according to God's vision, this crazy countercultural picture he paints for us, then happily even after can be real. Not simple, but real. God's plan is for relationships to be these spaces where we are fully known and fully loved anyway. That's the kind of love he has for us. It's the kind of love he invites us into in relationship with one another. It will never come quick. It'll never come easy. There's seasons. It's a process of growth, of trust, of commitment. And it requires vulnerability, and it requires a willingness to do what's hard and do what's countercultural and kill the foxes. You guys pray with me? Lord, thank you for love. Thank you for this weird, strange phenomenon where we have the chance to fall in love with one another, to unite our lives to somebody, to pull in the same direction and go through life together. And thank you even more than that for your love, for your incredible, outrageous, scandalous love that caused you to come and give your life on a cross so that we could be forgiven and set free. Lord, every one of us in this room has made mistakes in every area of our lives, especially for most of us, relationships. Well, thank you that we're not too gone for your love. Thank you that we're never too far gone to live out a story that draws us towards you and towards love and towards commitment and towards being fully loved and fully known. Thank you for the way that you love us. In Jesus' name, amen.